I think if you like Bly Manor and The Haunting of Hill House, maybe you'll like this too. A book that divides the book community because a lot of people think that this sucks, while a lot of other people think that this is like the best book ever. Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. So today I'm going to talk about all of my favorite books from last year. So get ready for some great books, some great stories, and yeah. So before we go to the formal favorites like my top 10, here are some of my honorable mentions. So the first one is Circe by Madeline Miller. So this is the author who wrote The Song of Achilles, and this book was just so amazing. There's not really a huge plot, but it's very, very interesting to read about. I was reading this and I was actually telling my roommate all about the things that were happening in here, and I think that she was very much invested in the story as well. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff here to unpack. There's some issues that happened to Circe. There's the kind of humor as well, and of course Madeline Miller's great writing. So I think that even though this isn't in my absolute top favorites for the year, this was definitely something that stood out. So if you don't know, Circe is actually a goddess or a witch in Greek mythology, and you don't really get much of her story in other Greek stories, I think. And here we really get to see what happened to her, although of course the author probably took some like liberties in developing this story, but overall it was a great story. And then we also have All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. So I read this in a reading vlog, and this isn't again my absolute favorite thing, but it just solidified my love for Japanese literature. It has this melancholy feeling, and I am just so amazed by how Japanese writers are able to make a story stand out even with such simplified, or not really simplified by, but maybe kind of like direct. I think it just scratches my brain because I don't understand how they do it, and I always see it in Japanese literature, at least the ones that I've read, and this was no exception. And actually after I read this, I was like, I need to touch grass. I just need to go outside and see some people because I don't want to end up like the main character in this book. So I don't really know how to explain the plot of this book, but just know that it's some good literature. And then my last honorable mention is actually a classic, which is a very surprising thing about this year, I think, and it's Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I think that's how you say her name, but yes, Emily Bronte. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and I just loved how this book was so petty, and I don't think that the people who love this book loves it because of that reason, but I just love the pettiness of this. And I guess if we are thinking about more technical terms, or like more technical aspects of this, I just really liked the timeline and how the author discussed the story. And obviously I love gothic literature, and I believe that this is gothic literature. The atmosphere is there. If you like, I think if you like Bly Manor and The Haunting of Hill House, maybe you'll like this too. And I love those shows, and yes, Wuthering Heights. Who would have thought? And then my top 10 is actually another classic, which is The Picture of Dorian Gray. If you are curious as to why my hand is like this, it's because I'm just not living for this cover, and I had to freaking start this while I was waiting for my friend in the airport. The same friend who I told like Circe about. But yeah, I was waiting for her in the airport reading this book. like this. Literally like this because I was like, people are gonna judge me. It looks I don't know, but I don't like it. Anyway, The Picture of Dorian Gray, a lot of people's favorite classic, especially in 2021. I don't know how Dorian Gray's renaissance started, but yes. And actually, valid because this is a great classic. If you're getting into classics, this is probably a really good one. It's not that long, the language is very accessible, the themes are really interesting. Again, I think this isn't the reason why a lot of people love this book, but I love this book because of the humor in it, and I don't think people love it because of that. But to me, there's a lot of humorous passages in here, and if I was someone who was acquainted with the author, and that is how Oscar Wilde thought and how he conversed, I think I would be really good friends with Oscar Wilde. But alas, he is dead. Just to give you look at that. I underlined a lot. I have annotations here, and it spans the whole book actually. Hold on. Look at here. Like, what what part did I not underline? It's just so good. And the discussion of beauty in this one is really good as well. And then the ninth book, I actually didn't know if I would classify this as my favorite, but ultimately I did include it in my top 10, and it is Beautiful World, Where Are You? A book that divides the book community because a lot of people think that this sucks, while a lot of other people think that this is like the best book ever. And to me, it's not the best book ever, but it does have this kind of impact on you. And yeah, it basically follows four people, two couples, and it just like how they navigate their lives and their views on the environment, capitalism, and stuff like that, just life in general. And I really enjoyed it. This is my first Sally Rooney book ever. I steered clear from Sally Rooney just because I feel like normal people isn't for me, but when I saw this, I thought that maybe this is the Rooney book for me. As you can see, lots of tabs because I did love this book. Like, look at that. I have a lot of thoughts which I forgot now. But mainly, I can tell you, mainly my thoughts were that Miss Sally Rooney is very good at making the mundane things interesting. The eighth book is actually an audiobook that I read and I made my mom read as well. And it is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, and it is just chef's kiss of a thriller, dark academia-ish story. I read that because I saw the author's interview in Elias, Joel, and Noel's book club, and I was like, this is a story that has been handled so intricately that I want to see the end result. And so I listened to it on audiobook, mostly when it was 6 a.m. and I was running around in the park because I thought that 2022 would be my running era, but I mostly just walked, not gonna lie. Even if that's the case, frickin' In My Dreams oh my god. In My Dreams I Hold a Knife is one of the best thrillers that I've read. And actually, when my mom was listening to it, I was reliving the amazingness of it. And then for top 7, Piranesi. Again, a lot of people's favorites by Susanna Clark. It was a winner for Women's Prize for Fiction in 2021. Very small book, short book, and possibly the most unique book that I've read in this time of my life in 2022. It's about this person. Not this. I mean, it's about a person named Piranesi, and he's just somewhere. We don't know where. There's a lot of statues. There's a sea that Piranesi can't be in. Yeah. So, in summary, I don't know how to explain this book. Again, just like some people say, it's something that you shouldn't approach by knowing the plot, I guess. But yeah, just know that this is a very, very good book. Unique, good, amazing, genius, masterpiece. Again, I read this in the airport. Honestly, a great time because then I wasn't bored at the airport. I feel like I said nothing about this book, so here is some of the things in the back. Piranesi lives in the house. Perhaps he always has. Then messages begin to appear scratched out in chalk on the pavements. There is someone new in the house, but who are they and what do they want? Lost texts must be found, secrets must be uncovered. The world that Piranesi thought he knew is becoming strange and dangerous. The beauty of the house is immeasurable, its kindness infinite. Literally. Did I tell you? You won't understand what's happening. But you just gotta trust that this is a good book. The sixth book is another audiobook that I listened to, and at first I didn't think that it would make the top 10 when after I read it, I didn't think that it would be one of my favorite books. But as time went by and it stuck to my brain, I thought that that is just such a great book, and that is Juniper and Thorn. So Juniper and Thorn is actually kind of like this gothic dark fairy tale, and I just recently knew that it was actually a retelling of a fairy tale. I'm not sure, but essentially it's about these three sisters who live in a house, and their father is actually a very abusive person who is very like it's a very patriarchal family, and they are very protected or sheltered and they can't go outside. They have these magical powers, and people pay them to essentially give services according like related to their magical powers. And anyway, it's just how Marlin Shan, who is the main character, so one of the sisters, it's just how she finds that she kind of wants to be independent from that. And it's kind of a romance as well, maybe. The main thing that I liked about this book is how cruel and how dark it is. So this is a trigger warning because it has a lot of graphic things in there. If I have to describe it in one phrase, it would be wicked beauty, because how can this dark and twisted tale be so beautiful? It's just amazing, amazing, amazing. Which reminds me that I have to read the author's other book, which is The Wolf and the Woodsman. And then book number 5 is The Stationery Shop. So there's a bookmark because my mom is reading this. Again, a book that I was telling my friend and my roommate about while I was reading it. Essentially, this book is a tragic romance set in the backdrop of war. So you just know that it's gonna hurt you. And I picked this book up actually in the bookstore and haven't. I just lost the bookmark. Anyway, I just saw this in the bookshop and I thought that this is such a gorgeous book. It's kind of expensive, but I guess it's worth it because it's now one of my favorite books. And it's not a perfect book. It definitely has pacing issues for me, but all in all, it's such a freaking gorgeous book, and you just come to know these two characters throughout their lives. And basically, it's about how these two characters meet and become acquainted with each other, and they go to the same stationery shop. They were supposed to get married, and something happened and the guy didn't show up. They weren't able to meet, and so it has two timelines of the present and of the past, because like why did this guy not meet the girl? But yes, it's just so freaking good. And I think this is the first book about Iran that I read about. And I love the culture imbued in the book. I love the food. I think there was food here. I believe so. And just, yes, it's so freaking gorgeous. Read this. Read this. And then book number 4 is a romance that I actually read 2 times this year in 2022. I keep thinking it's this year, but it's already 2023. And it's Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I didn't think that I would like an Emily Henry book as much as I like this one, because the first two, Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation, didn't really love that as much as other people raved about them. And this was just the perfect freaking book for me. It's about this girl who is a book agent and this guy who is an editor, and they kind of dislike each other in the beginning because the guy has very strong feelings about one of the books that the girl's author has produced. Yes, basically, first impression's not good, but the girl goes to this quaint little town with her sister, and apparently he's there and things happen, and yes, it's just so freaking good. And the main thing that I liked about this book is that this girl is actually a cutthroat person. She's a girl boss that is often villainized in like romantic movies, stories, but yeah, it's just freaking good. Look at the tabs. There's a lot. There's a lot. And then the third book is actually a manga collection, and it's Deserter by Junji Ito. And honestly, Deserter is my favorite story manga collection of Junji Ito's by far. I just think that it had a lot of variety, and in that variety I really liked a lot of the stories. And yeah, just freaking good. So I also read Shiver this year. Last year, 2022, I also read Shiver, but I didn't like it as much as I liked Deserter, because a lot of people say that Shiver is Ito's best collection, but for me, it's Deserter. And then the second book is actually The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So I read this in like a separate reading vlog. It had its dedicated vlog, which I'm really happy about. A lot of people again like either like this or hate this book, and for me, I liked it. I just think that there's something genius about the way that Donna Tartt wrote this. I just love it. The atmosphere, the themes, the conflicts, the moral grayness of it all, it just is so good. So if you want my full thoughts about this book with some spoilery thoughts at the end, just watch my reading vlog. Just, yes, it's just a freaking good book. I read this because I wanted to see like the OG dark academia book, I guess, and really good. I also had a lot of conversations with a lot of other people about this book, and it was such a great time. It felt like I'm in a book club or something. But yeah, that's The Secret History. And then my absolute favorite book of 2022 is a book that I might not have discussed or mentioned more in the channel, but it's Human Acts by Han Kang. So definitely not for the faint of hearted. It has a lot of graphic themes, and it's the main point of the book. It's, for me, it's meant to make you feel very uncomfortable. So it's about the massacre in Gwangju province in South Korea. So the political climate of the time, it's just really bad, and obviously during those extreme times, there's obviously resistance from a lot of people, and in this book it just shows you they're actually children who are just involved in this great and horrible event, and it just took me back to a lot of like similarities between South Korea and the Philippines that I didn't know about, because there's the same thing like that happened in the Philippines, and it's obviously like martial law. It's how they torture people and how they control people, and this just was so freaking good. And how the author approached this, like in a literary perspective of choosing to tell the story in that way, just that takes guts to me, and that takes courage, and that like courage and sensitivity, both of that combined in one. Yes, and very it's a very serious topic, but I also love the cover of this. If you don't know, one of the design elements that I really like, or design elements, or just it in general, are ginkgo leaves. So yes, Human Acts by Han Kang, an amazing. So anyway, those are my favorites from 2022. I hope you had a lovely time listening to me talk about them, and I hope you had some great recommendations. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!
정말 감사합니다.